Kick Challenger Airfoot has presented me with a bit of a problem, and it's one that's compounded by how poorly documented the game is. My problem is this: is Kick Challenger Airfoot an official Nike game? There's Nike branding everywhere. It's on the cover, it's on the sprite. The princess you're rescuing is named Nikita, but there's no credit to Nike in the game itself, and no mention of them in the manual. So I think this is a case where ASCII just used the Nike swoosh. Maybe that's why they weren't willing to publish it themselves and handed it off to VAP. Then the shoe giant can always go after the publisher instead of them. The plot of the game is that Princess Nikita has been kidnapped by insects, and as an anthropomorphic tomato, it's up to you to rescue her and restore peace to the land. The game has a subtitle, Yasai no Kuni no Ashi Senshi, or Foot Soldier of the Vegetable Kingdom. That gives you a small hint towards how it plays. Airfoot is played from an overhead view, and the control scheme will take you a bit to get used to. The closest thing I could compare it to is Crazy Climber, though it is more straightforward than that. You're controlling one foot at a time, and moving the D-pad around moves that foot. Pressing the B button will make you do a little kick, and that's useful for taking out the marauding insects, as well as smashing terrain to find items. Tapping the A button will switch which foot you're controlling, and that will also move your body up to be next to the foot that you're no longer controlling. You can move around a bit faster than that by pressing and holding the A button, and that will maintain the relative position of your feet as you walk in a direction. So if you line your feet up vertically, hold down A and press up, you'll do a very narrow step, which will be useful for getting through tight spaces, but you can also have a much wider gait when it doesn't matter. The most important thing as you play is to kick open terrain. You're going to need every item that you can find. Only one item can appear on screen at a time though, so if you smash something and spot a power-up, and then smash another thing, you could make your first power-up disappear. And naturally, the most important power-ups that you can collect are shoes. You start the game barefoot, which isn't a great situation to be in. All of the shoes have some kind of effect that improve how you move, and they last until you die or collect another shoe. So when you're barefoot, you just don't have any benefit at all. The yellow boat shoes and the wings, which give you gray shoes, let you cross some terrain that you couldn't normally. With the boat, you can walk on water, and with the wings, you can walk on nothing. Normally, if you step off of the path, you die instantaneously. And that's actually part of the major challenge here, navigating those tight spaces so that you don't fall off. Those two make it much easier and speed up your movement. The blue shoes don't slip. Without them, if you step half on and half off of a surface, or onto certain slippery surfaces, then you'll start sliding. And that's a good way to slide right off to your death. The blue shoes will keep you in place. Finally, the red shoes are probably the most effective shoe to walk around with. They make you go faster, and they make you step further. There's a lot of spots where you barely have enough space to maneuver, unless you have the red shoe, in which case you can just step over an obstacle. There's also quite a few items that aren't as permanent. The potions will recover your health. You can take 4 hits when you start out, and coming into contact with an insect can bounce you pretty far. The potion will recover 1 point, unless you're at maximum health, in which case it makes you invincible for a short time. Similar to that is the lollipop. That freezes all enemies in place for a short period. And its counterpoint is the poop. Stepping in it will make them avoid you. Your shoes turn yellow, and enemies avoid you for a little while. And even though the shoes are yellow, they still have whatever effect you had on them before. The bomb kills all enemies on the screen, a straightforward enough effect, and the spray turns your tomato into a can of insecticide. Then, when you hit the B button to attack, you shoot a long-range spray. This is your most effective weapon, especially against the bosses that take up a huge amount of the screen and tend to charge at you. If you get hit while you're the can of insecticide, then you revert back to being a tomato. Finally, there are money bags that are just worth some points. However, points do earn extra lives for you, so it's still worth it to get them. You have 3 lives at the start, and there are no continues. When it's game over, it's back to the title screen. However, there are some cheat codes that can help you there. On the title screen, if you hold down A and B and press start, then you go to a stage select, and can jump ahead to any of the 5 stages in the game. There's one more thing that you can find inside terrain, and that's warp points. The stages in Airfoot are a maze, and a major part of getting through them is finding the correct warp points that will take you forward. Be careful about that, because even though warp points could be right next to each other, they won't necessarily go to the same place. And you'll encounter a lot of places where you have to actively avoid the warp points to make any progress. The screen only scrolls up, not back, so it is possible to get stuck in certain areas, but there's always a hole there that will take you someplace. Like so many Famicom Disk System games, Airfoot is extremely obscure in Japan. Going by the very few people I've found talking about it, it comes across like most of the people who played it did so by rewriting their floppies. So maybe this was a game that people tried after they had played everything else. My own feeling on Kick Challenge or Airfoot is, it's interesting, but I don't think it quite works for me. I found the precise maneuvering to be just a little bit too uncomfortable, especially when you had to be very careful where your foot came down. Watch the shadow, that's what matters here, but it was very difficult to step over things like spikes. And the hostile insects attack in just a continuous stream, and they can get spaced just right where you really can't move because you're constantly attacking. To me, this is a close, but it doesn't quite come together. And that said, I can definitely see how people would enjoy it. It's a distinctive game, it provides a good challenge, there's plenty going on. It definitely feels like the kind of game that you're either going to love or you're going to bounce off of. In fact, look right below this video, there's already half a dozen people who have said how much they like the game. Even if I wound up not caring for it, Airfoot is the kind of game where I appreciate that it exists.